For me, it's morning. It's about 10 o'clock here, as it is for Gayatri. And welcome, thank you for welcoming me, and welcome to your little bit of Portland here. I'm in the temple office, and um, it's fun. I almost forgot about this. It was in the last couple of days. I thought, oh no, it is getting closer. It's April now, and and things are happening. So I got really excited about coming and being with you. So Gayatri and I talked about the main topic today that I could share about was affirmations, using affirmations with children, and that, as we know, is a spiritual practice that Swami talked about, that Master taught, and that we all use probably in a lot of different ways. My strongest memory of working with my children and affirmations, and for those who don't know, I have three children. All of them are grown now, and I have two grandchildren. And they were raised, we raised them in with different churches, with different spiritual paths. My husband and I didn't go to the same church. He went to a more traditional Christian church. His background was strongly Christian. I was raised as a Protestant, but my family wasn't really actively, spiritually active. And we didn't have a strong spiritual community. I was raised in the military, and so we moved around, and we didn't have like a family church. Our community was the army. But I found the path when I was about 21, and before I had children. And then so all of my children were born after I was a devotee and a disciple. And so that was how I raised them with Ananda. We didn't live in an Ananda community, and they did not go to a living wisdom school, even though we did eventually have a living wisdom school here in Portland. They participated in some activities with living wisdom, but they weren't regular students there. And they went to the Ananda church, and they also went to their dad's church. So they had a lot of exposure of a lot of different ideas as they were growing up. But I remember clearly, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but some of you may have heard of Paula. Asha tells stories about Paula and her passing, how dramatic it was, and that she was a longtime devotee and part of Ananda's work. And she was living here in Portland for quite a while as the spiritual director. And then when she transitioned, when she got ill, and she went back to Ananda Village, and then her transition was there. It wasn't here in Portland. But my children knew her, and she was a delightful, charming, lovely, saintly woman who who related to children very genuinely, and they thought she was wonderful. So when I heard of the fact that she was transitioning, I went into the boys' room. I have two boys and a girl. This was before I think my daughter was born, so there were just the two boys. And we were in the habit of doing affirmation before they went to sleep at night. So I taught them how to write Om on their pillow, which is something that I believe Master suggested. And we would do the affirmation for security. I am secure in God's love and light. That's in the I Came from Joy book. And we would do that, and we would do that every night. So I went in to talk to them, and we were doing our bedtime routine, and we said the affirmation, and I was struggling a little bit with what should I tell them about Paula. I wanted us to pray together. I wanted to send her light, and I wanted them to know. I didn't want to hide the fact that this was happening. And so I decided I would tell them. And I told them that she was sick, and that, she was going to pass, she was going to die. And one of my boys, the older boy that knew her better, he began to cry. He was immediately sad. And my other son just immediately popped up pretty joyfully and just said, well, then we have to do the affirmation for Paula. Paula is secure in God's love and light, is what he said. And we all did it. We all did it together. We said, Paula is secure in God's love and light. We did it several different times, and we sent her prayers. And I just always held that as a wonderful example of how powerful affirmation can be. That when we're confronted with realities of life, if we have those in our heart, and that's our go-to. That's where we go when we're looking for what do I do now. And we probably all have examples of that in our own life, of using Master's affirmations or Swami's affirmations, and that those really help build our spiritual strength. But it can also be true with kids. I also have had experience with my kids. As I said, they were going to a Christian school, not a Christian school, just a Christian church, and like a youth program, and they were involved there as well as at Ananda. And this youth program that they were part of did a lot of memorization. They believed in giving the kids scripture to memorize Bible verses, and they worked on memorizing the books of the Bible and things like that, which at first I was a little put off by, but then I also realized, no, this is actually valuable for them as well. But the problem I had with it was that often there was not a real connection with the kids of what it was that they were memorizing. They had a certain sort of curriculum to go by, and that they would memorize these pieces, and they would get they were motivated often by reward. They would memorize a certain amount, and then they'd get a sticker or a star or a treat or something like that, which again it's not a bad thing. But I saw that there wasn't, most of the time, there wasn't a lot of connection between the words and the meaning and why they were doing this. It was just part of what they thought, was associated with this church and what they were doing there. And so I saw affirmations and memorization being used in that way as well. So when I was doing the I Came from Joy book, and using Swami's affirmations, I first started doing them. We would use an affirmation for a month in the Sunday school. So it wasn't just one every week. We would do it for the whole month. And that way it gave me time to explore with the kids and use it more frequently, and for them to hear it more often, to practice it at home, to talk about what it meant, to do associated activities and things like that over a longer period of time. And I found that to be, at least seemed to be, more meaningful and more effective with my children as well as the other children in the Sunday school. And one of the things I want to tell you is the affirmations that are in the book, the I Came from Joy book. These are based on Swami's affirmations for self-healing. And I got his permission to do this. It made me really nervous to think about using his work and changing it in any way. And I wanted his permission to do that. And he gave it to me freely and said, no, that of course, do that. My work is supposed to be seminal, he said. It's supposed to be something that you build on. And I'm very happy to say that he was pleased with it. And as soon as the book was published, I sent it to him and said, thank you. And so the affirmations, I feel that the affirmations in that book are very much blessed and approved by Swami. Not that necessarily makes them any better than any other affirmations, but it makes it more in line with our teachings at Ananda. And it's not just a Lorna thing that Lorna thought up. because, I was really reaching for how to work with the kids in Sunday school, and Swami just didn't create, as you know, he didn't create a curriculum for us to use. We had some great stories and we had ways to work with AY and other things, but we didn't have that. And so that's how the I Came from Joy book was created. So the affirmations that are there are, I feel, are pretty solidly in line with Master and Swami and our vibration. And I have learned over the years the power from my own experience and the fun of working with affirmations, and how so much of what we do at Ananda here is our affirmations, our songs, our chants, our, there's so much of it that really is just affirming the truth. And what we're trying to do is affirm the truth all the time. And it gets into our subconscious. So that's why Master told us to memorize samadhi, which is just to affirm that reality that is true and real, and to bring it into our consciousness so that we don't forget, so that we remember there is something beyond this material world, and a reality that is that we all share. So bringing it into our subconscious is real important, and then bringing it up and out and having fun with it, and bringing it into super consciousness is fun. So we had we meaning my family and my kids had different affirmations. We played with the ones in the book, or are some of the ones that we did. If I had to do it over again, and I may have to do it over again, but if I had to do it over again, I would lean into that even more. I would really even teach and make that a part of my parenting even more, is the use of affirmations, but not in a formal way, just in a way of my relationship with my children, but in the way that we did, because they do get in there. We had a gratitude prayer, which is sort of an affirmation prayer that we did together as the kids, because I did homeschooling with my kids. And it was, and I can send this to you, Gayatri, but you'll have it on the recording too. We said, I give thanks to God above for friends and family, life and love, for sun and moon and all the stars, for all we can be, all we are. And then we would say, and then the kids could insert something they were really happy about, a new toy, a new thing, a friend that they made or something. And so we would say it all together, and they would each be able to add their own, what it is I'm grateful for today. And relatively recently, I was talking with my son, who's now 32 years old, and he brought this up, and he recited the whole thing. He said, Mom, I remember that prayer. We give thanks to God above for friends and family, life and love, for sun and moon and all the stars, for all we can be, all we are. And he said, that was so cool. He thought it was so cool because it came to me. It was an inspiration that I got. I didn't read it in a book or anything. And he said, that still comes up for me as a prayer, as gratitude, and as a memory of our time together and being a little kid. And I just, my mommy heart said, good, okay, that was a good thing. That was a good thing we did together. And that had a positive impact. So it can be a surprise that even as our children grow, and maybe they're not actively on this spiritual path or any spiritual path, but these seeds are planted. And that's why in the Christian world, it's a big deal to get the kids to memorize scripture, is that the seed is planted in there. But the way the brain works is that it it's much it's a memory. The memory works with emotion, something that has a lot of energy. Master described it as energy. If there's energy around something, then it's much more likely to stay with you. So it's also true of strong emotion, or emotion, the heart's feeling is involved. We don't want to emphasize strong or restless emotion, but if the heart's feeling is involved and connected with that, um, we know now with brain research that connects in our brain in a different way, and that's why it's so important to be aware of when there's negative things that you want to get rid of. You don't want to think about is to try to what do I want to say? Try to connect your aspiration, the direction that you want to go, strongly with your will and with your heart's feeling, so that has a lot of energy around it and gets magnetized. It's not so much that we want to push away the other things, but we want the positive to grow and to be strong. And so it's a process that we all have to work with to try to get rid of the negative and hold on and use the memory for good. Master's teachings say that memory is the whole purpose of memory is to remember goodness and to remember the good things that happen to us. So affirmations can help us and help our children to put energy into goodness and into positivity and into light, and that will have a stronger effect, that will be in our memory more strongly. And he says the purpose of memory is to remember goodness, and then the more we remember goodness, we eventually remember where goodness comes from. All goodness comes from God. And so the whole purpose of memory is to take us back to remembering God. And using memory to remember negative things is a misuse, he said, of memory. So that's another reason why affirmations can be such a good spiritual practice for us and our kids, is to remember truth and remember goodness. There's a I wanted to read, and if anybody has any questions or comments, please speak up or wave or something. So I wanted to read Yogananda's, I think this is from his Scientific Healing Affirmations book, but I can't be positive about that. He says the spiritual power of man's words. And this is just a brief paragraph about using affirmation. And he says, man's word is spirit in man. Words are sounds occasioned by the vibrations of thoughts. What we think, and then we speak it. Thoughts are vibrations sent forth by the ego or the soul. Every word that leaves your mouth ought to be potent with genuine soul vibration. I love that phrase, potent with genuine soul vibration. The words of most people are lifeless because they are spoken automatically, without being impregnated with soul force. Too much talking, exaggeration, or falsehood weakens the power of your words. That is why the prayers or words of such people who don't put a lot of thought into it do not produce desired changes. And he says, every word you speak must represent not only truth, but also some of your own realized soul force. Words without soul force are like husks without the corn. Husks without the corn. So what I hear in this, man's word is spirit in man, is as everything we do, but this became more clear to me as I'm reading these words. Everything is when we put our energy and our, as he describes it, our soul force into our words or into anything that we're doing. It's a partnership between us and God. It's spirit and our soul working together. And we know also that there really is no separation, but this is what happens. Every word you speak must not only represent truth, truth meaning God, divine law, divine reality, or that which is eternal and changeless, but also some of your own realized soul force, which is our contribution to that, our unique expression of the divine that's in us. And so those two are working together. We also, of course, more often than we like to think about, impregnate our words with our ego force and everything that the ego represents, or the separation of us and God. And so as devotees, we're trying, we're working on that, working on more God consciousness and less ego consciousness. And when we're working with kids, that's of course what we want to encourage them to do. But of course, we're not going to lecture the kids about that. But we want to encourage them to speak truth, not just what is factually true, but what is eternally true. And that's what affirmations help us do. God, Paula is secure in God's love and light. That's eternally true. And when you speak words that are true and hold that with that power that comes through our soul that God gives us, then you have a very, very powerful affirmation that can change your consciousness and can take you towards divine realization. So one of the things that came to me later, not when I was a young parent, but now that I'm older and more experienced, I won't say wiser, but certainly more experienced, is one of the things I think that we can do with children is to just help them maybe even at a fairly young age to remember and think about words being either God words or God talk or talk, words of our small self. And so affirmations can be, this is God talk, or this is truth talk. And are your words carrying the truth? And that, I think, would be something that I would emphasize. I would like to emphasize with the children that are in my life now is the idea of being more conscious of your words and using affirmations as a way of working with God together, that I'm saying these words with God. I recently, within the last, 6 months or something like that, have been working just on personally with a spiritual practice regarding the guru and my discipleship. So Master and Swami both said that the affirmation or the mantra that is very powerful is just Om Guru, Om Guru. And that Master said that means you're asking the guru to introduce you to Om. And of course, God, the guru and Om are the same thing, are harmonious, are one and the same. So I was working with Om Guru, and then one day the words came in guru, in guru. And so then that became with guru, om guru, in guru, oh, with guru as well, and through guru. And then the last one was from guru. Everything is from guru. So then I've been working with this whole thought, or this whole inspiration about everything coming from the guru, but that I can be in the guru and with the guru and working through the guru, and everything comes from the guru. And that it's, like I said, it's a partnership where we're working together all the time. And even after 40 plus years on the path, that was a new inspiration for me, a new way of looking at it, and a new thought, a new way of working with the guru. And then when I was thinking about affirmations, the same thing occurred to me, that the words and the affirmations that we use and that we teach our children and work with them, they can be done in a way where we're feeling like we're really working with God. We're working with inspiration, and it's not just our little self and our little ego trying to affirm something that's bigger because we're so small, and we're trying to affirm something that is hard for us to grasp, because that consciousness will keep us separate. And what we want is a consciousness that's more and more together with God, together with the guru, and in harmony and together with the truth. And so thinking about the affirmation as saying it with God, and even little kids, I think, can grasp the idea of the difference, or playing around with the idea of saying words with God, and God saying it through you, rather than just little me, I'm saying these words. If you're saying, especially if it's a special time of prayer, or before bed, or when you awake, or it's a practice, a regular practice that you're doing, is that, and I don't know who, I believe that Swami said on more than one occasion that praying, also just praying in God, thinking about praying in God rather than praying to God, is a good idea, because it takes away that separation of I'm here and God's there, and there's something keeping us separate. So the idea of praying in God is a good practice for us as adults. But with children, it probably, the concept of with God, of saying things with God, is probably a little easier for them to grasp. And are these words that God would like? Are we gonna be? Is God gonna be happy with these words? Are these words that make our hearts feel good and make our hearts open up? And would God want to be in these words with us? And just the whole idea of an affirmation being something that is true and right and dharmic, however you want to put it, and is something that God is participating in with you, I think is at least the right direction we want to go as parents working with kids. And even one word can be an affirmation. When I came on this path and discovered Master's affirmations, I said, "Oh my gosh, they're so long. So many of them are really long." And so I would take just little pieces of them, and memorize a phrase or memorize a few little words together instead of these really long affirmations. Affirmations to me always were supposed to be pretty short. Over the years, I've gotten more used to it, and I've memorized some longer ones. But with kids, even one word, can be an affirmation of truth and of light, that we can. What is your response when this happens? Is it is it jai? Is it is it something that is going to release that kind of energy and be something that God can say through you or with you, or is it something small that our little self wants to say? um, and you can experiment with both. You can experiment and say, how does it feel different to say this or say that? And let them discover for themselves what it is that helps them move in the right direction. But saying it in God or with God, or God is saying it through me, is another way of looking at what is a good affirmation. A good affirmation is something that you feel like you can say with God, or you can say in God, or that God is actually saying through you. That's a positive affirmation. If it doesn't feel right doing that, then it's probably not an affirmation that you want to use. And that anything that is positive and kind and loving and done in the right spirit can then become an affirmation that you can say over and over again. And when you hear your children say something positive and kind to a friend, you catch them, being just spontaneously wonderful as they can be sometimes. Reinforce that and say it again, and bring it up again, or write it down and say, "Oh, that was a wonderful thing to say. Let's write it down together, or let's say it together in our prayer, or let's say thank you to God for those wonderful words that came today." Reinforce it and say, this is what we want to hear, not just because that makes you a good little girl or a good little boy, but because that's evidence, that's telling us that God is right here with us all the time, because goodness comes from God. All goodness comes from God. It doesn't come from this small little self. It comes through us from God. And so to try to instill that idea in children, that all goodness comes from God, and remembering goodness and good words and good deeds, good thoughts, all are evidence to us that God is right here. God is listening. God is doing this with us. God is present in our day-to-day life. And it doesn't, I'm talking about an attitude more than trying to, of course, lecture the children and try to teach them that. It's much more of an attitude of a day-to-day. This is what we're going to try to remember, so that it just becomes part of how you operate and part of how we operate. And of course, that's what we're trying to do as devotees. Let's just try to remember that all the time, that God is doing everything through us. Gayatri, any thoughts or any questions or any place you want me to go with that?
Well, Hansa she had to step out. I think it's dinner time, but she did ask a question on the chat. Could you please speak about the technique that Master gave us for working with affirmations, and do you teach the use of this technique with children?
Yeah, he taught us, like we do at Sunday service. He taught in this, saying it loudly to get the attention of our consciousness, and then taking it into quieter tones, repeating it more in a speaking voice, repeating it in a quiet whispering voice, and then repeating it silently. And it's a wonderful technique. I did that with my children when they got older meaning, I don't know, at least 6 or 7 or so, that to old enough, and your children, so that old enough that children can actually pay attention and follow through with that. I don't personally, I don't think it's super important for kids to do that. I think it's more of an adult practice. But again, your kids and whether they would respond with that. in the I Came from Joy book, one of the things that I recommend on one of the activities is taking the affirmation and doing it in different kinds of voices with kids. So doing it in a quiet whispering, like a little mouse voice, or doing it in a big lion voice, or doing it, like you think a fairy might say it, or saying it, like a robot might say it, and saying it in a silly voice, and anything to keep them engaged and keep saying the words, because the more you're going to say it and the more you get into their mind and the more you practice it, the deeper it's going to go. And so I think you need to take your cue from your kids and what's going on with them. Obviously, a quieter practice where you're taking it to you, whispering it, and maybe repeating it to yourself quietly. That's a practice that might work best on a one-on-one, where you're in a quiet place and you're doing your little sadhana or your prayer time together before bed or something like that. But especially if you're your child is in a more active frame of mind, I would say just use the affirmation in any way you can, just to get them to say it and have fun with it, and say the words and ask them, do you know what that means? What do you think that means? Or what is that word? What does it mean to be safe? What do you think of when you're safe? I am safe and secure in God's love and light. Have them draw a picture, of it, or find a picture that might mean that to them. Find a picture that you would cut out and maybe put on the wall or something. I'd say just get joyful and playful and do it in any way that seems fun for children to do that. But of course, the idea with that Master's teaching us is that we need to get beyond the superficial level, and we need to take it into a deeper and deeper in our consciousness. So whatever works to do that, I think, is a shorter answer. Shorter answer. Was there any other question there? I didn't look at the chat.
I had a question. I forget, it might have been maybe self-expansion. I'm not sure, but there was an activity that was talking a lot about working with like two parts of ourselves, like the smaller part of ourselves and then more of the higher aspect of who we are. And there was different activities to kind of foster that. Could you share a little bit more, just working with, like, how do you explain the higher self and the ego in ways to children? And
yeah, I think mainly that activity or that idea is to bring to awareness, or help children to be aware, that all of their impulses and all of the thoughts that they think and all the things that they want to do and the things that they desire and that they want, it's not all the same mental citizen, to use Swami's we have a lot of different mental citizens and which one are you going to listen to? So even very young children, I think, again, part of what I just said about affirmations, and is it of God? Is it something that is true? Again, you're not going to really teach them at a very young age that idea, but you can help raise their awareness and say, do you think that thing you just said, maybe it was something mean, they said to their sister or something, do you think that is truth? Do you think that's your best self saying those words? Or do you think it might be, a smaller self saying that? And you can come up with your own, or let the children come up with their own, or whatever their vocabulary is, it seems to come out of, is this, rather than labeling something mean or petty or wrong, um, trying to find the words to say, this is smaller, this is more self-absorbed, this is all about me and what I'm feeling. And what you're feeling is important. It's also important to let kids know their feelings are valid. It's okay to feel, and to have feelings of anger or to have those feelings, but to recognize that there's a bigger picture. There's something bigger that God wants us to see. And so is this, is whatever whatever is happening, is it a bigger idea? Is it your bigger self, or is it your littler self? And those are just the words I was using there. But like I said, your children might have different words. But I think mainly the concept is looking at ourselves and recognizing, is this something that makes me feel smaller, or is it an idea or an expression that makes me feel bigger, more expanded, more connected with somebody else? So I remember in our Living Wisdom school, they often, I'm trying to remember the words that they use. I think they usually said higher self, um, and smaller self when there would sometimes arguments or conflicts that would come up, and we would talk about, okay, well, what would the higher self do in this situation? Maybe you're not feeling that right now, but what is it that you think is a bigger thing to do, or a kinder, more expansive thing to say? So big and small, I think, are pretty basic concepts that most even young children can think about. And the idea that it's real subtle, that we're really not talking physically big and small, we're talking in our consciousness, sort of a bigness or a smallness. But I don't think you need to worry too much about whether they get the subtle aspects of it. It just, they'll grow into it. They'll grow into this idea of, oh, yeah, when mom talks about my smaller self, I don't feel real good. I feel like it's just about me. And when I think about the bigger self, it's, oh, I'm thinking about more people. I'm thinking about other people and how they feel. So it's something that will develop over time, I think. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I guess maybe it's a little expanding off of this idea. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about nurturing both realities of these children are souls, but they also are these bodies that do need to learn how, to be hygienic, to brush their teeth, to take care, they do need to learn, take care of the body. We can't just forget about the body. And so how do you balance nurturing both?
It's a really good question. And this is my plan. Hi. It's a really good question, and it's part of our, obviously, our day-to-day existence as adults as well as young children. And I'm not sure I have I'm not sure I have the greatest answer. But we do have to remember that all children come in with karma, and with they're here in the physical body, and we're here in the physical body because they're lessons that we need to learn here. If we didn't have lessons that needed to be learned on the material plane, dealing with the physical body, dealing with the realities of the material world, we wouldn't be here. So even if we have very high spiritual ideals and aspirations, we're still working on this level of consciousness of the material world. And that's part of what we have to come to as devotees, just accepting that and saying, because often when we come on the material path, we fight the whole idea of even being here, because we want to be on a higher plane. We want to be more in God consciousness. We want more of that reality, and we start rejecting the physical world. But when you're with have children to care for, you can't, as you say, you can't just reject the physical world. This is the classroom. This is where we are, and this is how we're going to learn our lessons. So we have to embrace that and say it's all God. We're here all together. And I think mostly it's a matter of trying as much as possible to foster joy in the day-to-day life, joy in appreciation of the physical form and what that means. My daughter, I remember my daughter when she was probably about 4, between 3 and 4. I was helping her. I think I was helping her undress, get ready for bed or something. And she just stopped for a moment and she said, "Mom, isn't it amazing that we even have a body?" And I said, "Yes, it is. It's pretty amazing." She said, "Yeah, sometimes I think about that, to have that we have 2 arms and 2 legs, and it works, and our body we have a body to help us do things." And that was purely spontaneous from her. I don't know what it was that made her sort of have that moment. But I think that's the right attitude. That's the attitude we want to have as much as possible. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that we have bodies that can do these things for us, that we can learn to grab things and play and, swing a baseball bat and run around and do all the amazing things that we do. And we need to it's such an amazing gift, and we need to take care of it. We need to just like if you had a pet, you need to help the pet and help take care of the pet. You need to help take care of your body, and it's because it's an amazing gift that we have. And even if you have issues with your body, even if there are, you might have a child that doesn't have a totally healthy body or has some limitations in some way, it's a gift to be here in the body, in the material world, and able to function. And things like, oh, the water is hot, the water is cold, the water, isn't that amazing that we can sense that, we can experience that. And those are all experiences that we can share. I think fostering that sense of wonder and awe and amazement of, wow, this is what we have as tools. And then responsibility is about, being a good steward of our body and of our things that we have, taking care of our toys, putting things away, not breaking things on purpose. And that's all part of being here, because these are all gifts that we have from God. And that's how we show our appreciation and our care and our gratitude for all those things. But different children have different temperaments, so they don't all respond to that. Children with really light consciousness will respond to that more. One of the things that worked particularly for one of my sons, regarding taking care of his things, was this expression of gratitude. We had a thrift store for children that was close by in the neighborhood when the kids were growing up. And so we would, when it was time to purge toys and possessions, we would take things to the thrift store. And the way they did it, this particular thrift store, they would open a little account for each child, and the child would get we get a little return on taking things in. But they had to be in good condition. You had to take care of your toys. They wouldn't take things that are broken. And so that was motivation too. But often my son had trouble letting go of things. And even though I knew it wasn't something he was going to play with anymore, it was somebody, we would talk about finding a new home rather than getting rid of something. We would say, we're finding somebody else will come to the thrift store and it'll go have a new home and they'll be happy to have it. But we talked a lot. For him, he had a little ritual. He would say goodbye and he would say thank you to his toys that he was going to give away. And for him, that was really helpful for him to express gratitude and say thank you. And that happened a lot. Even as he got older, that was something he would do when he was sending things on or closing sort of a chapter in his life or a lesson or a task or something. He got to where he would have a moment of silence or prayer or a moment of gratitude and say thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for this lesson, or thank you for, and now I'm ready to move on. It's always of fostering that we have to work in this world. We have to work with the environment we're given, and everything is an opportunity to learn a little bit more. But but lightness, of course, and joy in the process is the most important. And you don't want to lay a heavy lesson on your kids every time you turn around. They're gonna get bored with it. I don't. Is that at all helpful, Gayatri? Okay, good.
Yes.
I'm glad. There's
Thank
lots. I'd love to hear other people's ideas. I know we're out of time, but if you want to, is there a way to share or put comments where you post things on the website?
Yeah, I can post this, and then we have a WhatsApp family group that people will often post things and
Oh, good.
feedback and experiences on as
Good.
well.
Sharing ideas is wonderful. I think it's so lovely that you all are finding a way to connect and not only making use of and drawing on the resources that you have, and that now we have this amazing ability to share globally, but also just to share ideas and things that work with each other. That's a wonderful thing to do and be able to do now through the internet, through these Dwapara Yuga tools that we have. I was part of a homeschool group, where we would do a lot of that sharing because that was long before we had this way of sharing. And so I encourage you to continue to do that. I hope this has sparked some ideas and also just some more discussion so that people can keep talking and sharing about it.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm sure many people will love listening to the recording, and we'll be able to spark a lot of different discussions and experiential things we can be doing at home with our kids. So thank you for being with us.
Good. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you again to everybody, all of you who are listening to this maybe afterwards. And I would love to come back sometime if there's any way that I can be of service to you. And I just wish you all the best and the joy and the great, great blessing of having children in your lives. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Thank you.